Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. It is 6 o'clock, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilmember Hilton.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you can be seated. We don't have an invocation today. So we're moving on to agenda item 1.4, which is City Clerk's report on posting the agenda, followed by roll call.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The agenda was posted on Thursday, February 23rd at 11 a.m. Councilmember Armendariz.
Here.
Councilmember Brockler. Here. Councilmember Klein.
Here.
Councilmember Hilton.
Here.
Councilmember Marks.
Here.
Councilmember Tavak.
Here.
And Mayor Blankley.
Here. Okay, under orders of the day, I'd like to suggest that we move from introduction of new business, item 11.1, renaming of the Gilroy Senior Center's classroom 1 after Theodore Ted Carpinetti to after consent. Is that all right with everyone?
Fine.
Okay, so we'll do that. 1.7 is employee introductions. Community development. Is that Sharon? Will you introduce? Yes.
Is this on? Okay. Don't see the light. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the community. I'm very happy to introduce a member on our team. David Ayers Jr. is our new hazardous materials inspector. On his first day here, when he introduced himself to our team, the first thing he said is that he's a Raiders fan. So I thought I need to share that with you first also.
Yes.
Yeah, good choice. As far as work, he comes to us with 8 years of experience in environmental health and waste material compliance. He has worked in both the public and private sectors in organizations such as Clean Harbors Environmental Services, Cal State East Bay, and Santa Clara County. So we're very glad he has joined us. He has also a dual bachelor's degree in biochemistry and microbiology. So yeah, he's going to be working alongside us to serve the Gilroy community. Please welcome David.
Make it really brief. Hello, City of Gilroy's council members. My name is David Ayers Jr. As you guys already know, I am the Hazardous Materials Inspector for the Building Life and Environmental Safety Division of Community Development. I'm excited to be here today, and I am eager to apply my knowledge, experience, and skills to the city community development team. I believe being in this position allows me to protect the city of Gilroy's natural resources while maintaining a high level of customer service and professionalism for the residents in the community. In closing, my goal is to ultimately enhance the quality of life in Gilroy. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, ceremonial items 2.1. I'm just acknowledging the proclamation that's in the packets proclaiming March 2023 as Youth Arts Month. Item 3 is presentations to the council. So do we have speakers?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We have 3 speakers. The first speaker is Jeff Orth, followed by Jan Guffey, followed by Joanne Fierro.
Okay, if you could please come sit up in the front row if you're planning to speak, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. All right. At an earlier report to the council, I said that it seemed to me that the Hispanic community, business and property owners had been unintentionally underserved. So I recently reached out and had a meeting at my office where we were expecting to have somewhere between 10 and 20 people. Turns out that 32 people showed up for that meeting. Also, as it turns out, I spent most of the 2 hours that we had that meeting proactively listening to their concerns, their struggles in the face of the wake of the COVID pandemic. I asked them how many of them had taken advantage of the PPP forgivable loans. And I was saddened and shocked to see that only 2 hands went up. As it turns out, they either found out too late or didn't know who to turn to for help. I let them know that the Gilroy Downtown Business Association block captains, I were eager to have conversations with them, helping to connect them to resources. For example, where they could go to get help with a small business loan, who to talk to for financial assistance with the city regarding facade improvements, or who to go to the chamber to find out what they could do to help with their social media in terms of promoting their business. It was a great meeting. There was a lot of mutual enthusiasm. We talked a lot about what they can do to help each other, what they can do to help the downtown. And it was kind of a help me, help you kind of a conversation. I'm personally very excited about the outcome of the meeting. One of the things that came out of this meeting, with the help of Chief Pedro Espinoza, we've scheduled a meeting on March 22nd at 5:30 at the community center. That's a safety meeting, a crime prevention safety meeting, exclusively for Spanish speakers. More to follow on that. Break-ins continue to be a problem in the downtown, as a number of people were unable to attend our first crime prevention meeting in January. So Chief Espinoza and I are locking in a date near the end of March to have a follow-up meeting. Also, one other footnote that I almost forgot to say is that Victoria Valencia, the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, and I are currently collaborating to put together 6 workshops for the small business owners to help their small businesses prosper. More to follow on that as well. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. All right, next speaker.
Hello. It's been more than 3 weeks since a train carrying hazardous materials derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, sparking a days-long fire. The wreck spewed toxic fumes into the air, contaminated soil, and drove townspeople out of their homes. Despite officials lifting a previously enforced evacuation order 5 days after the derailment, residents have reported a number of ailments, from rashes to nausea to trouble breathing. There were cars going through that town containing vinyl chloride, butyl acrylate, should have practiced that before, ethyl something acrylate, and there were 2 other chemicals that are known to have been released to the air. So my question is, what do we know about the trains that are carrying stuff through downtown Gilroy? So I emailed everyone, and Mayor Blankley responded very quickly. Thank you so much. And but she said she has no idea what the trains going through downtown Gilroy contain. She suggested I contact Union Pacific, who runs the freight trains through here. I did. And guess what? It's been more than a week, and I haven't heard a thing back from Union Pacific. Councilman Hilton responded to my query, told me Gilroy has an emergency operations plan, last updated in 2009, but still relevant, and that the city recently received a 5-year grant from the State Office of Emergency Services for staffing a community resilience coordinator. So that's wonderful. It seems to me that it would be helpful to our first responders if they knew what was being carried through downtown Gilroy and when. My questions remain unanswered at this point.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Joanne Fierro, followed by Ron Kirkish.
Good evening, everyone. At the city council meeting on January 23rd, there was a video shown right at the end. In fact, I missed it when I was here in person, caught it on tape. This video was meant to go to the International City Management Association. It's a promotional video for economic development. I have to say, when I got a chance to look at that video, I was pretty disappointed because, again, we have not shown the diversity of our city. We do not have any representation of Hispanic or any of the other ethnicities that are in this city. And we do have those stores in our downtown. The video was a clip of a music, at night music. It repeated the images over and over. There was plenty of opportunity to build on that and include it in there so that there was a lot more diversity. The professional company that put this together, because I'm sure it was very nice. They need to get the directions from us. They're going to do what they do, which, unless we tell them different. So I'm asking that this video not be sent to the association until it's upgraded, until it's redone to include more people. I would also like to ask that the city council have a public meeting to discuss any publications any sort of promotional items that represents the entire city to make sure that it includes all the different people in our community. The other thing I would like is for us to really work on having the city council do a workshop on the JEDI toolkit. The toolkit gives every person on the city council and any staff member, anybody who wants to take the toolkit, you can even do it online. And it will help you make these decisions in the future so that all of our citizens are represented, all of our community is represented in a truthful and honest way. Justice, equity, diversity, and inclusiveness. That's what JEDI stands for. That's what this city should stand for, and all of our citizens would benefit from it. Thank you. A little bit nervous.
Thank you. We have another speaker.
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's Ron Kirkish.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, community. Last week's or so, Gilroy Dispatch had an article praising Silicon Valley clean energy. And it was a nice article. But the issue is, it did not even go into the fact that every summer we have major blackouts. And why? Because they don't deliver enough energy during the time. There's not enough supply to meet demand during these times. That needs to be addressed, not only in our area, in Morgan Hill, areas were out for 3 days. We were lucky because we're on a special grid that shouldn't go down, but it does once in a while here. So if we're going to sing the praises of Silicon Valley energy, clean energy, then we should also talk about the other things. In that same article, there was talk about CO2. I don't know if you all know, but CO2 is a trace element in our atmosphere. It is only 0.04% in our atmosphere. That's enough to provide all the grasses, all the vegetation to green up. If you see our hills, all that is from carbon. And each molecule that we have in those plants carries 55 carbon atoms. That's a lot of atoms for one little molecule. And those plants make up millions of little molecules. We need carbon dioxide. If we didn't have carbon dioxide, we would not have life on Earth. Also, CO2 is the main ingredient, a main molecule in our atmosphere that protects our planet from being burned up by the sun. If we don't have enough, we're going to have problems with our Earth. So people tend to villainize CO2, and that's wrong. That's not crap. That is wrong to villainize CO2. And you need to really bone up on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
No other speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Moving on to item 4, which is reports of council members. Councilmember Bracco.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Armendariz.
No report.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes, I have a report on Gilroy Gardens. They had a very profitable year last year with their Halloween Boo Night being one of the most favorite events of the year. And holiday lights came in at a close second, but unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we had a lot of rain in December. Unfortunate for Gilroy Gardens because they got rained out a lot. But hopefully this next year, it will recoup. We have some dates to remember coming up. March 18th is going to be Premium Day for all of the people who bought a premium pass already, and is the opening day for Fantastical Flowers. If you're driving down 152 and you look at their signs, you're already going to see the signs are all decorated with flowers to promote this new event. And on the 18th, to thank all the premium pass buyers, it's going to be Dollar Days, where you're going to be able to buy a lot of items out there for $1. On Sunday, March 19th, it's Gilroy Residents Day, and all the meals out there will be for $10. If you know Wah and his pricing, that's a really good deal because nothing out there is $10. On May 25th, will be the first public day. And that will be the launch for everyone else for a fantastical flower. So please mark those dates down on your calendar and go out there and enjoy all the fun. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Hilton.
Thank you. From the Valley Transportation Authority Policy Advisory Committee, the Better Bus Stops program is a multi-year program that installs new amenities and makes site improvements at their 3,200 system-wide bus stops to improve conditions for riders. As a component of the Better Bus Stop program, Better Bus Stop Balancing optimizes bus stop placement to improve transit operations and access. In 2022, VTA completed 9 routes and will continue to update all routes until all routes are completed. Several of these routes are completed in Gilroy. Better Bus Stops is a program that enhances the rider's experience by installing new and replacement amenities and improving bus stop conditions. The program's main source of funding comes from the VTA's 2016 Measure B Bus Stop Amenities Funding category, with additional funding from the state, regional, and local funding sources. Amenities like shelters, lighting, benches, bike racks, and trash cans. Partnerships with cities are essential for improving access to public transit. The Better Bus Stop team coordinates regularly with member agencies on incorporating transit improvements into city-led streetscape projects and conditioning new developments to improve nearby transit stops. Better Bus Stops does not directly contribute to or reduce greenhouse gas emissions. However, providing amenities and improving conditions at bus stops improves the transit rider experience. It may influence an individual's decision to ride transit. GHG emissions are likely to decrease as more individuals choose transit over driving alone. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Klein.
I have no report.
Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. I just want to thank the community members that I met with this weekend, just to sort of share their thoughts and their concerns. Just want you to know everything that you said to me. I take it to heart, and there are items that we will be discussing. So I appreciate everyone who reached out to me. 2 additional dates I want to just remind folks of. Our Poppy Jasper International Film Festival is coming up in April 12th through the 19th. I was lucky enough to participate in a music video promoting Gilroy, and sort of look forward to that coming out. That should come out at one of the events. And then coming up, I will be doing my 2nd annual salsa tasting car show competition that raises money for both fire and police, and that should be in mid-May. I hope to see more folks. Last year we had over 600 people, and I hope to see all of you out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I have 2 doozies, both with respect to transportation. One is to let everyone know that this week, city staff will submit a federal grant application in the amount of $21 million for construction of the 10th Street Bridge.
All right.
On behalf of the city council and the city of Gilroy, I'll be submitting a letter of support and ask that any interested member of the public do the same. Any and all advocating is welcome. For information, you'll need certain information like the grant number. So for that information, Jimmy, contact you or contact Jimmy Forbes, his email. All right. Secondly is Caltrain. On March 2nd, which is this Thursday, I'll be attending the Caltrain board meeting to speak to expanded train service to Gilroy. Gilroy has been waiting, as many of you I'm sure know, for a 4th train for years. The $367 million grant that was just awarded to Caltrain will fund electrification through Tamian and San Jose, leaving Gilroy and Morgan Hill in the same position we are today, still waiting for train service equal to the minimum level that exists in every other city on Caltrain's main line from San Francisco to Gilroy. On Thursday's Caltrain agenda, the board will be asked to approve an MOU, that's a memorandum of understanding, with Transportation Agency for Monterey County, also known as TAMC, to start the process of extending train service to Salinas. At issue is the commitment of Caltrain resources to this MOU with Monterey County at the potential expense of our long-awaited 4th train. So far, the closest thing to protecting South County service is the following statement from the Salinas Extension Feasibility Study from April of 2020. And that is that future service to Salinas must not result in any changes to the operation of Caltrain mainline service, nor cause any negative impacts to mainline service. I've been arguing for support of expanded service to Gilroy at every committee level this month, from Citizens Advisory Committee to Joint Powers Board, Technology Operations, Planning and Safety, to the Advocacy and Major Projects Committee, and now at the board level this Thursday, asking that negative impacts to mainline service specifically include jeopardizing the expansion of service to Gilroy. It's not enough to say that diverting resources to Monterey County won't jeopardize existing mainline service when every city on the main line except for Gilroy and Morgan Hill already has more than 3 trains. The MOU should contain a written condition that Caltrain will not begin train service to Salinas before expanded service is delivered to South Santa Clara County. Caltrain staff has been communicating regularly with Gilroy staff and myself regarding this matter, and they are advocating for a 4th train by June of 2024. If you'd like to add your comment to Caltrain board on this item, please reference agenda item 6D, like dog, and email your comment to publiccomment@caltrain.com or see the meeting agenda at caltrain.com for Zoom links and instructions. Okay, that completes my report. Moving on to item 5, council correspondence. We have in our packets an item that everybody is hopefully aware of. Okay, item 6, future council initiated items.
Mayor?
Yes,
And I don't know if this is a future agenda item, but I want to go back to one of the comment that was made by Ms. Piero regarding the video publication. And before I sort of, push for something, I just want to know, has that video already been sent out?
yeah, we'll let Jimmy respond. It's not a sent out thing. We didn't make the video. Yeah.
The video, Mr. Tovar, the video in question was presented at the International City Manager Conference in September. So there's no further action or no further use of the video in any official City of Gilroy capacity.
Okay. Thank you. And again, maybe it's just something for us to think about and just to take those comments to heart and sort of moving forward. Because again, I think sometimes we come across this, that we should be sensitive to all the diversity ethnic groups out here. So I appreciate those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. Before we go to, well, maybe I'll start with public comment. Can I do that?
Actually, Madam Mayor,
I
did
should-
we finish with future agenda items?
I didn't hear anything. Yes, we finished with
Okay,
future
thank
agenda items. Okay, so moving on to the consent calendar, I'm going to first ask if there's any, I'm going to open the public comment if we have.
There's
any.
no public comment.
No
at this
public,
time,
okay,
Madam
so
Mayor.
closing public comment. And before we take a motion, I would like to pull agenda item 7.1 for clarification. And Council Member Klein, right, needs to pull 7.4 so that he can, because he has a conflict. So let's start with that. We'll pull those 2. And that means I'll entertain a motion if anyone would like to make a motion on the remaining items.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve 7.1, 7.2, 3, 5, 6, and 7.
Right.
Councilmember Almadetis,
Yes.
Councilmember Baco,
Yes.
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton,
Aye.
Councilmember Marks,
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar,
Yes.
and Mayor Blinkley.
Yes. All right. That passed unanimously. Now on to 7.1 before we get to 7.4. 7.1 is just approval of our minutes from the February 6th meeting. And the reason I asked to pull it was because to the portion of the minutes on what was 11.3 at the February 6th meeting, which was the introduction of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gilroy, amending Chapter 19B of the City Code for smoking. If you recall, it was to add to the title except in designated areas. And so I'm asking that the minutes reflect the addition of the following language, except in designated areas, to the end of the title of the ordinance to further clarify the title. It is all correct in our packets tonight. It's just the minutes didn't reflect that we had that discussion. Okay. So I'll move that we approve 7.1 with that clarification, seconded by Councilmember Tovar. And now a vote.
Councilmember Almadetis,
Yes.
Councilmember Baco, Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton,
Aye.
Councilmember Marks,
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar,
Yes.
and Mayor Blinkley.
Yes. Okay, that passes unanimously. Councilmember Klein, do you want to state?
Yes, 7.4. I do have a conflict of interest with that, so I need to recuse myself from that.
Okay. Councilmember Klein is recusing himself as soon as he has left the building, left the room. We'll, yeah, just in the lobby. Okay, so is there a motion to approve 7.4? Moved by Councilmember.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Councilmember Rocco and seconded by
Me.
Councilmember Armandaris.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilmember Almadetis,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yes.
Councilmember Klein has recused. Councilmember Hilton.
Aye.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar.
Yes.
And Mayor Blinkley.
Yes, all right, and that passed. Okay, Councilmember Klein, if you can hear me, you're welcome to return. We are now on item, we have moved, right, 11.1, we have moved now to, so this is renaming of, this is fun. Renaming of the Gilroy Senior Center's Classroom 1 after Theodore Ted Carpenetti. How about that? Adam, you're going to give us this report?
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Adam Hennig, Recreation Manager, and I will be presenting about the renaming of the Gilroy Senior Center's Classroom 1 after Theodore Ted Carpenetti. Ted was an active participant of the Senior Center. He was described by peers as warm, friendly, kind, and generous, and known to always greet newcomers to the center. He participated in many of the senior programs, especially if it involved dancing. Ted has made previous financial contributions to the center, most recently when he turned 100 years old. Ted has a deep connection to Gilroy, a resident since the mid-1940s. Following his service in the Navy during World War II, Ted and his wife Elise settled in Gilroy. Ted is a former City of Gilroy employee, having worked as the park maintenance manager. Last summer, Ted's relatives visited the Gilroy Senior Center to deliver a generous donation of $4,000 on behalf of Ted, who recently died at the age of 105.
Wow.
Subsequently, the Senior Advisory Board submitted a request to rename Classroom 1 the Ted Carpenetti Room. To have a public facility be renamed after a person who has or someone on their behalf made a significant monetary contribution, it's based on one of the characteristics per the gift and sponsorship policy. Demonstrated good character, personal achievement, made contributions to the community, or made efforts toward the enrichment of the city. Based on the information cited in the advisory board's letter, which I spoke about in the previous slides, the proposal fulfills that criteria. In addition, the policy required approval from the Parks and Recreation Commission, which they did so unanimously at their January 2023 meeting. There is no fiscal impact. If approved, the donation made by Mr. Carpenetti will cover the costs of a modest room sign and legacy plaque that will be hung inside the classroom. Staff recommends approval. This concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Adam. All right, council members, any questions before I go to public comment? All right, any public comment?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we currently have 3 speakers. The first speaker is Barbara Lamal, followed by Albert E. Noble, followed by Joe Carpenetti.
Okay, if you're planning to speak, could you please come sit up in the front row?
Hello, my name is Barbara Lamal, and I first moved to Gilroy about 5 years ago. And one of my neighbors was kind enough to tell me about the senior center. So I went over there to see what it was like, and it was one of the best things that I ever got involved in. And one of the best things that happened was that I met Ted over there, and I sat at his table almost all the time I was there. And all I can say about him is that he was the kindest, nicest person. Never, ever heard him say anything about anybody that wasn't complimentary. And in the years before that, I'd worked many, many years in customer service and also in all different relations with customers and in the banking area. So I know what it's like to deal with different kind of people. And all I can say about him is that I enjoyed working with him, and he's done so many wonderful things for the city. One of my neighbors was a longtime friend of Ted, and he was telling me how he knew him when he was over at Christmas Hill Park and how he contributed to so many things in the city. And he was very, very generous. And even outside of the center, I was with him a couple of times. I used to see him in Safeway and different stores around, and he always had that little smile on his face, just always pleasant to every single person. And also we went on a couple of casino trips And he was very generous with his contributions to the city, money wise. So that was a great help. But all I could say about him is that Adam said just about everything that I can possibly think about him, that he was just a wonderful man. And one thing about him was that he enjoyed the activities over at the senior center, especially dancing. He loved to dance and do other things with the people. And he had that little smile like you see there. That was just his face. He was always smiling and just a very, very pleasant man. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker.
My name is Albert Noble, mayor and council members. Uncle Ted was my uncle, and he retired in the city of Gilroy in 1978, the same year that my wife Sheila and I were married. He retired after 20 years, and he's got a lot of your pension money over the years. He basically is one of 14 children that served in 5 of his brothers with him served in the Second World War.
Wow.
2 of them didn't make it.
Mm.
One of them received the Congressional Medal of Honor, Purple Heart. He's given to the country. But Gilroy he worked for the city, and he worked in the parks and recreation. And during that period of time, you constructed what is now the Christmas Hill Park. And he was so proud of that. Everybody brought from Pennsylvania, which all came out here, he really saw that they supported that. He basically was a lifetime member of the American Legion. He was involved in many, many things. He actually also went to Rotary meetings with me. I'm a Rotarian. The Rotary Club made him a Paul Harris Fellow, and he contributed and is a Paul Harris +2. He was a man that you would want on it, because there's a lot of wonderful senior people probably deserve a room named after him, but you have to start somewhere. So I recommend you do that for my uncle. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker.
Hello, my name is Joe Carpenetti. My uncle Ted lived in Gilroy most of his life. He worked at Christmas Hill, like my cousin said. He treated that park like it was his own backyard. He loved every minute of it. After his wife passed away, the senior center became his go-to place. He made many friends there. Always had a good time. Went on a lot of the trips with the seniors to the gambling casinos, and if he ever hit it big, he always made sure a donation was made to the senior center.
Nice.
So, and he made another donation before he passed away. He wanted to make it clear that he wanted a donation to the senior center because they done so well for him, and it was his place to go. He was a Navy veteran, and they had his picture hanging on Monterey Street there for many months. And I'd really appreciate it if you would consider naming this room after him. He would be honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Does that conclude speakers?
No other speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
All right.
Mayor?
Closing. Yes. Sorry, I'm closing public comment.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I just wanted to make a motion in renaming the
Oh.
Gilroy Senior Center classroom run after Theodore Ted Carpenetti.
Mhm. All right. We have a motion.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Marks. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. To rename the senior center's classroom 1 after Theodore Ted Carpenetti.
Councilmember Almaderis,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yes.
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton,
Aye.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes.
Councilmember Tavat,
Yes.
and Mayor Blinkley.
Yes, and that passes unanimously. Congratulations, they have a new name there. Okay, item 8.1. Award a contract to iTech Solution in the amount of $134,140 with a project contingency of 10%, $13,414, and approve a project expenditure of $147,554 for Gilroy Sports Park Playground Surface Repair, project number 23, PW 276. Daryl, you got it.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Councilman, and folks here tonight. Excited about this project, and even more so, I'm excited to introduce one of our rising stars in my department, Michael Lewis, behind me, my management analyst. He worked hard and heavy on this project. It's part of his professional goals to be here tonight, so I want to introduce Michael to you tonight for this presentation.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Thank you for the forum to talk about this grant opportunity. So I'll just get right into it. So a little background on this item. Excuse me. The State of California Department of Parks and Recreation Office of Grants and Local Services, or OGALS, allocates grant funds to cities and counties based on population with two grant programs under Proposition 68. The first of which is the General Per Capita Program, and the second is the Urban County Per Capita. The city applied for funding for two projects, first of which would be the San Isidro Lighting and Picnic Area Improvement Project, and the second is the Gilroy Sports Park Playground Surface Repair Project. And it should be noted that tonight's request is specifically for Gilroy Sports Park, which received a separate allocation altogether. Gilroy Sports Park received $78,750 from the allocation, which will assist in the repair of the badly damaged rubberized playground surface. And the surface is here, just a little project segment section. This is on the east side of the ball field there. You'll notice that there's two areas enclosed, make up roughly 6,400 square feet in area. And this project would take care of all the areas enclosed. It'll take care of some of the peeling that's coming from the concrete edges as well as missing rubber and just patches. It's just not in the best shape overall. We did a standard bid process for this. We advertised it in the San Jose Mercury News, the City of Gilroy's website, and ARC Document Solutions back on December 9th, 2022. It was advertised there for a little over 3 weeks. And when we returned from break, we opened those bids on January 5th, 2023. Staff received two bids, and iTech Solution was identified as the lowest responsive bidder. Lowest bid was above the engineer's estimate due to increases in both petroleum-based rubber products as well as the rise of labor costs. So speaking of those costs, iTech's base bid was $134,140. We would also be requesting a contingency of 10%, which equals $13,414, brings the total up to $147,554 coming out of the general fund's landscape operating budget. And our recommendation is simply award the contract to iTech Solution for the amount of $147,554 for Gilroy Sports Park. And myself and Daryl would be available for any questions should you have any. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful. Questions, council members? Okay, going to the, we have one.
What was the difference in the other in terms of dollars
For both bids?
for the second one?
Yeah, so iTech Solution came in at $134,140 and B&H Builders came in at $173,768.
Right.
It's a bit of a difference, little delta.
Okay, do we have any members of the public wishing to comment?
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
All right, closing public comment, coming back to council.
Sorry, Mayor, I have one
Yeah.
additional question. Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to look up the locations of these two companies. Am I correct in saying that the company recommending is from San Luis Obispo?
No, iTech, I believe, is out of Burlingame, and in B&H Builders, I don't have that information on me right now, but they were, I want to say out of San Jose. They were fairly local. They weren't based in Gilroy.
NH Builders from Burlingame and then iTech Solutions. I don't know where that's.
One of them was from the South Bay, I want to say.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, we're going to alternate. So
Yeah.
that's
fine, sure.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Councilmember Bracco and seconded by Councilmember Armandaris to award the contract to iTech Solution.
Councilmember Armandaris.
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yes.
Councilmember Klein.
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton.
Aye.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar.
Yes.
And Mayor Blankley.
Yes, all right, that passes unanimously. 8.2
Thank you.
is to approve an amendment to the agreement for services with Alpine Landscapes for Community Facilities District Landscape Maintenance Services to include trash and debris removal. The annual cost for the expanded service, extend the agreement for 18 months with the total cost of $500,450 for the 18-month extension. Daryl Jordan will be giving us this report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of two more public works projects tonight. A little background on one of these two landscape projects. The city council approved a CFD landscape maintenance contract with Alpine Landscapes on January 8th, 2018. The contract expires this February the 28th, 2023. The city issued a request for proposals for new contracts, included an addition of debris removal due to the increase of debris and maintenance waste throughout our city that we've been seeing. The city received protests and questions regarding the evaluation and procurement process of this RFP. Upon further review, staff found there was a merit within the protests and would prefer to use additional time to reevaluate the proposal scope for a cleaner product for our bidders. The proposed extension of the current contract for 18 months will allow staff to refine the proposal process prior to the evaluation of a long-term award for this area and assure a streamlined process to all of our bidders. The 5-year CFD landscape maintenance contract is expiring and an extension is necessary to continue services with Alpine until the city can enter a new long-term contract with this vendor. It was advertised in the San Jose Mercury News and city website on January 25th, 2023 by our procurement requirements. The proposals were evaluated by a committee consisting of public works staff on February 9th, 2023. The city issued 4 addendums and answered questions posed by interested contractors during the process. It is in the city's best interest to reject the bids and extend the current contracts to ensure a more streamlined process for a long-term award. Project costs, as you can see here, their current contract amount is approximately $306,000. One of the major items that we added to this and the next project that you'll hear from is a trash component. With all the trash that we've been having to pick up around the city and debris accumulation, we thought it in the best interest of this project and this contract to add some additional monies for that so they can help us clean up the city. As you can see there, the trash and debris removal here is around $11,000, $12,000. We also are incorporating a 5% CPI to keep these folks in business. We all know costs are rising. We thought that was fair. The revised annual contract amount would be $333,000. And we'd add this extra 6 months, making it 18 months with the extra $166,000 you see there, totaling around $500,000. The funding source of this is the current funding source is the landscape operating budget. So tonight, our recommendation is to approve an amendment with Alpine Landscapes to increase the annual contract amount by $26,916 per year to a total amount of $333,633. And extend the term of the existing agreement by 18 months for landscape and maintenance services and authorize the city administrator to execute the amendment and the related documents. And with that, I'm here to answer any questions that's.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Daryl, can you tell us what the disputes were about and why it would take 18 months to resolve that?
I think the biggest issue we found here is we have 2 contractors that have that reside here in town. So they have staff here in town. They're both doing an excellent job for us, both in our CFD and citywide projects. And the criteria that they were to bid upon was almost identical. Landscape services, what type of qualifications do you have for landscape services? What type of history do you have for landscape services? So almost bidding the exact type of scope. The bids came in within a few thousand of each other. And they both had some questions on some of the procurement methodologies that we use, how we ranked them. You know, they didn't agree with how we ranked one. The other group didn't agree with how we ranked the others. So we think we'd like to clean that process up and make it a little more distinct. So there's a clear division line in the future on how we choose who does the work here within the city. And we would like to spend some more time to make that clear. So
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yeah, Daryl, exactly what are they gonna do?
Landscape maintenance, you'll see the medians, a lot of landscape strips along the streets are in our landscape maintenance districts throughout the city. I'm sure you've seen their trucks around town, all around town on a weekly basis.
So on the trash cleanup, where are they gonna be doing that at?
Well, unfortunately, trash is infiltrating everywhere. All of our landscaped areas, we've got carts pushed around everywhere and left in different landscaped areas full of trash or full of debris that people just abandon. So right now we're trying to find time with our current staff to go do that and takes them away from their other duties. So, but anyway, if we can help, they can help us.
So it's in the places they're currently
exactly
maintaining the, okay.
Exactly. That's correct. Yes.
Mayor, I have a question.
Okay, I've got Councilmember Hilton first,
okay.
and then, okay?
Sure.
Can you go back to the trash thing? So
Yeah.
when we make, like right now, we have that contract with the trash, bulk trash, right? Where we can have the contractor go out and pick that up. So this will be just another toolkit from there to be able to use, like, or is this just like small amounts that they might already be seeing when they are out there working?
It's kind of a combination, Councilman Hilton. If they're there doing the work, doing the maintenance, and there's a cart there or there's trash there, they won't have to call us to come take that and move it. They can pick it up right there.
Okay.
And haul it off with their other debris. So.
Okay, so it's more of like the bulky stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
don't just pass it up or turf it off.
Yeah, don't
Like,
just don't leave it.
please just take care of it.
Yes.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you.
All right, Councilmember Marks.
I have two questions. Who is responsible for painting out of graffiti at the parks? Is it the city or is it one of the landscape companies?
We have a city group that will do that. We can farm that out if it's a big project, but we have city folks who actually are involved with that unless it's in a certain district that we don't own. So.
And has Alpine and Jensen always been responsible for the medians in our city? For weeding the medians, or is this something brand new?
No, they've always been, and it's different areas have different, they're over different areas. So.
And do they do it just one time?
No, they do it constantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know over the past couple of years, the medians have looked pretty shabby. We've had a lot of complaints from citizens about how they looked. So I was just wondering if they just did it once and then they went to the next year or what. So hopefully they tend more to this year since we've got this increase.
Definitely on a rotating.
I knew where she was going with that.
Yes.
I know. It's true. The medians aren't as well kept as you might think if somebody is in fact on those all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for contracting out for it. Okay, that being said, I don't see any public speakers. Do we have any public comment?
No speakers, Madam Mayor.
Okay, then closing public comment and coming back to council for a motion.
I'll move.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilmember Marks, seconded by Councilmember Tovar. Okay, seconded by Councilmember Tovar, to approve the amendment with Alpine Landscapes.
Councilmember Almaderis,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yeah.
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton,
Aye.
Councilmember Marks,
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar,
Yes.
and Mayor Blankley.
Yes. Okay, so that brings us to 8.3, which is almost identical, but for the other company. I don't know if you want to do another report or we just,
It's basically the same report, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
that's fine. So I assume there are no other questions. So let me ask, okay, Councilmember Bracco.
Daryl, when they're doing this work, does anybody from the city go out there and check and make sure they're doing it right?
Yes, that's a good question. We have different districts throughout the city. We've broken up the city into I think like 5 different sections. Each section is monitored by one of our maintenance folks. They have a checklist that they go through to make sure they've done what they're supposed to do, and it reports back to the deputy public works director.
So like on cleaning up shopping carts or trash in the median, say like Monterey Street, south of 10th Street, it gets the landscapers are out there trimming those bushes like once every 2 or 3 years. So that's when it'll get the trash picked up?
No, it should be much more robust than that. And we're actually working with our city manager too on other options too, to make sure we have trash picked up on a more regular basis. I have other parts of my department that also route on a weekly basis on the hot spots. So we're looking at those too. So we're tackling that from different angles throughout the city right now, even with code enforcement from Sharon's group. So
thank you.
Councilmember Tovar.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And just going off of Councilmember Bracco's questions. So if that's the case, so they would be responsible for cleaning up these items that are out there, shopping cart, tires, whatever it may be, right?
Yes.
What, and I'm glad he asked the question about, who's monitoring that they're doing that, and when, how often. And I guess my question would be, what's the turnaround if something is out there in an area that they're supposed to monitor and it's out there for weeks? Or the city's calling that company to go out there and clean it, correct?
That is correct.
And what's the turnaround time for something to happen? I mean, if we call them and say, hey, there's tires, you need to clean that up. I mean, I say, yeah, we'll get to it, or is there, we'll get to it within the next 24 hours. Follow what I'm saying?
Sure. Our typical response time is 24 hours. For example, our city manager found a spot today along Gourmet Alley this morning, and it was done within 2 or 3 hours today. So, but the expectation is if they're there, don't leave it. Pick it up, take it with you, don't call somebody else, help us mitigate the issue.
Yes, I called Jimmy about that exact project. I
Okay.
appreciate that, Jimmy. No, that's sort of the example I wanted to use. So
That's
okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any speakers on this, but I will ask.
No speakers,
No?
Madam Mayor.
Okay, no speakers on this, so time for a motion. Yes. Oh, Councilmember Klein moves to approve this amendment with Jensen Landscape Services. Seconded by Councilmember Tovar.
Councilmember Armendariz,
Yes.
Councilmember Rocco.
Yes.
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton,
Aye.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar
Yes.
and Mayor Blankley.
Yes, passed unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, 9.1, public hearings. Proposed tentative map to divide 6955 Camino Arroyo into two parcels within Gilroy Crossing Commercial Development, application number TM 22-05. Before we get to report, I need to ask if there is anyone needing to disclose ex parte communications. That means any discussions whatsoever with anybody. Okay, seeing none. Sharon, go ahead.
Good evening again, Mayor, council members, and members of the community. Tonight, we have a tentative map application for your consideration. So this site is located at the Gilroy Crossing Shopping Center, which is at the southeast corner of 101 and 152. The applicant has applied for a tentative map to create a separate parcel for the restaurant building where Panda Express is right now. So on the slide, it's at the upper right corner where it's marked proposed parcel A. And the property line creating the two parcels will be located down an existing site access drive aisle. And the parcels will maintain their frontage and shared access across shared access from Camino Arroyo. So there's no change to the development. The map complies with subdivision standards. The resulting parcels will not create anything that's non-compliant. And as we mentioned, there's no change in development. And the proposed subdivision is exempt from CEQA environmental review as a minor lot split. On January 19th, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the proposed tentative map to the City Council. So here's staff's recommendation is to determine that the proposed tentative map is exempt from further environmental review and qualifies for the state CEQA guidelines class 15 exemption minor land divisions, and to adopt a resolution to approve the proposed tentative map to divide the property we're just talking about into two separate parcels. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions of staff? No. Okay, anyone from the public? Well, I'm going to open the public hearing. It is 6:53 p.m. Do we have any comments?
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay, closing the public hearing at 6:53 p.m. And looking for. Okay.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bracco to approve, seconded by Councilmember Armendariz. Are you about to say something, Andy?
I was going to say, if this could be done in one motion, but if the first motion is to approve that the tentative map is exempt from further environmental review as specified in the agenda, and the second motion is to adopt the resolution. And there should be a roll call vote.
Okay, so let's put them both together then. Is that all right with the motion maker and seconder? Okay.
Councilmember Armendariz,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yes.
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton.
Aye.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar
Yes.
and Mayor Blankley.
Yes, all right, that passed unanimously. Item 10 is unfinished business. We have none. Item 11, introduction of new business. 11.1 we already took care of. 11.2 is adopt a resolution declaring additional Gilroy Gardens property as surplus pursuant to Government Code Section 54221. Find that the council's action in doing so is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15061B3. And Jimmy, you're giving us this report, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. This item is very similar to one that you approved back in August of 2021. in which the council declared 342 of the 536 acres out of the Recreation Gateway area as surplus. As you may also recall, the Surplus Land Act requires that the city make available for negotiations and discussion with affordable housing developers any land in which the city enters into a long-term lease, typically over 5 years, or that the city wishes to sell the property. This property had already been, as I said, 342 with basically the area encompassing the park and in the general vicinity was not surplus at that time, primarily because we had no indication from the vendors of the process that we the RFP that we conducted to look at the property that they were interested in utilizing that lower area. We subsequently received a letter of interest from another vendor who is interested in looking at the possibility of utilization of the lower area as well. And thus, before the city can even begin to entertain any options, we must declare the rest of the land as surplus. Right now, the property is not currently able to use or meet a governmental purpose. And so the Surplus Lands Act process would give notification to housing community development agencies and low income housing developers, notification that the city has this land that they're looking to dispose of. This does several things. Is one, it enables the city to negotiate with any entity in good faith. It does not require the city, though, to accept an offer, to enter into any type of offer if the city chooses not to. So the city would still retain the option to do with the land at the end as long as they've negotiated in good faith. It allows us to accept proposals for 60 days from lower income housing developers. And if we do get an offer from a developer, then we have 90 days as required by the state to negotiate, as I said, in good faith. At the end of that 90 days, which is 150 days total, the city could decide to dispose of the land to a developer, retain the land as it is, or do anything else it would like, as long as it's determined by the state of California that Gilroy bargained in good faith. What it does not do, and anytime you talk about an area like Gilroy Gardens, you hear of a lot of things that people are hearing about what could possibly happen there, and that is really, they're very much nothing is in concrete, and nothing has actually really been discussed because we're not allowed to until the Surplus Lands Act. So even though we did receive a letter from an entity that's interested, this is not the first time we've received letters. I've probably in the last 3 years received 10 phone calls asking about the property. So I don't get too excited or too far down the road until I see something in writing or there's something that I can share with council and is a viable project. There's a lot of ideas out there. So I want to make sure that everybody knows that, nobody knows what would happen to the property should we, get through this Surplus Land Act. And currently we are in a lease with Gilroy Gardens for a year by year. We just extended that agreement last month and expect that they'll have a successful season and also the ability to have input too onto what the future of the park in that area is. The city owns it, but doesn't operate it. And so as you can imagine, there's a lot of connections and a lot of history with that property, and one that certainly deserves and respects a lengthy process, and one in which all voices are heard. So I do want to assure everybody that anything that would happen to that property is probably quite a ways down the road, maybe in the terms of years, due to the fact of how long it takes to get through the Surplus Lands Act process, how long it takes to negotiate with a vendor about doing something, and then how long it takes to actually to secure the property. So we will have more information as we get through the Surplus Lands Act. But at the end of the day, the city retains the right to use the property as it deems necessary. And so any action that changes the use or maintains the use will have to be submitted to city council consideration. And I think we're quite a ways off from that point in the process. So this is very similar to what you recently did for the Cherry Blossom Apartments. We will be coming to you time and time again with Surplus Land Act actions as we look at some of our vacant properties that we'd like to either dispose of or utilize. It's something that we're getting pretty used to doing. And so this won't be the last time that you'll see a Surplus Land Act request. But this is a big one. This is the city's largest land asset. And of course, we've had a park operating on it for 20 years. So it certainly has a lot of layers to it. I do recommend that council approve the staff recommendation to submit this property to the Surplus Land Act in the state of California. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, so we'll go to council questions first and then to public comment. Councilmember Bracco.
Jimmy, so if you have to do it for the leases too, does that mean you have to do it all over again every time the lease comes up for renewal? Or is it just one time and you're done?
I'm not completely sure on that. I know that the criteria is if you enter into a lease longer than 5 years, that you have to go through that process. So I could imagine if you go with another vendor, you may have to, but I wouldn't know. Andy?
I would think if you maintain the same use going forward, for example, there would be no need to declare it surplus. And really surplus, declaring it surplus envisions a possible change of use, including possibly to housing. So it would not be simply leasing it to one entity and then another.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions from council. I don't see any public comment on my screen, but do we have any?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, closing public comment. So looking for possible action.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Bracco to approve, seconded by Councilmember Klein. To adopt, the motion is to adopt the resolution.
Councilmember Almaderis,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco,
Yes.
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton,
Aye.
Councilmember Marks,
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar,
Yes.
and Mayor Blankley.
Yes, that passes unanimously. All right, 11.3, accept the annual compensation financial report for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022. Parjot, you get this exciting subject.
The hottest item on the agenda tonight. All right, good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the community. My name is Sergio Sanga, the finance director with the city of Gilroy. The item before you is the acceptance of the annual comprehensive financial report, also known as the ACFR, for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2022. Some background, back in September 2022, we came before you with the preliminary year-end report for the year. Since then, the audit is complete. The financials have been published, and because we received a large sum of the ARPA monies for fiscal year 22, the city is subject to the federal single audit, and which is expected to be completed here in the next couple of weeks, and will be before you at the next council meeting. Before I dive right into the financial report and the actuals, I wanted to take a moment to kind of differentiate, the intent of what the ACFR financial report is versus the budget. In terms of ACFR, it's essentially a set of financial statements that comply with the accounting requirements established by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, also known as GASB, and subsequently are audited using the generally accepted government auditing standards and provide assurances on the city's financials if they are reporting, in appropriate GASB requirements and in compliance with the accounting standards. The ACFRs are more of a look in the past. I call it rear view mirror, how we actually did. So they contain actual results of the prior year's financial activities. They measure, again, where we were. Some of the intended audiences of ACFR are more of external stakeholders we call regulators, so federal agencies, state agencies that have given either some kind of grants or other items. They like to see the actual financial audited statements. Other audiences could include investors such as our bondholders. They also like to see how we performed in the prior year from an actuals perspective, as well as our rating agencies as well. Since they main ratings on the bonds, they want to see how we're doing from an actual perspective. While we can paint a great picture about where we're headed to them, their analyses are typically based on actual performances. And then the other set of financial document is the budget. Budget is a financial plan that sets out our projected revenues and expenditures for a given time frame and presents more of a present future where we are today from a financial perspective and where we believe we're headed. That's done via our biannual budget as well as the 5-year forecast
both of which you'll recall back in January, you received a fiscal year 23 mid-year budget update report, as well as at the strategic council meeting, you received another update on the 5-year forecast and what we intend to do there. So very important. Just wanted to distinguish, what the intent is, the intended audience for those two documents. So jumping right into the highlights of the fiscal year 22, the auditors rendered a unmodified opinion, which is the optimal clean opinion for the fiscal year 22 financial audit. Part of their scope also includes evaluating the internal controls and doing a report on those internal controls for the fiscal year 22. No deficiencies were identified. And from an overall net position, the city's overall net position increased by 26.1 million to 373.3 million, primarily a result of a strong economic recovery we had due to higher, tax revenues, as well as capital contributions in the forms of developer impact fees that we saw for the fiscal year. Focusing in on the general fund, the revenues were at 73.9 million, which were 17.4 million higher than prior year, primarily in the areas again of tax revenues. And in the general fund specifically, we had intergovernmental grants, which includes the one-time ARPA dollars. From an expenditure standpoint, the expenses were 55.7 million, which were about 4.7 more than prior year. Just looking at the fiscal year from a budgetary perspective, the actual expenditures were 2.1 million less than the final budget, which was a result of operational savings and understanding in capital outlay. From a fund balance perspective, the fund balance increased by 18.3 million to 37.9 from prior year. Other highlights, annually, we do submit to the Government Finance Officers Association award, which is essentially evaluation of a checklist criteria. If, we meet that, we did receive the award for fiscal year 21, and we believe we meet the criteria requirements for fiscal year 22 and are preparing to submit for that award as well. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the recommendation before you is to accept and file the audited comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year 22.
Thank you, Harjot. Council members, any questions for Harjot? Okay, public comment?
No
Any?
speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay, no public comment. This is just accepting. We don't need a motion, but I would like to just point out some things that the public might find interesting because it's not accounting financial numbers. But for those of you who are either watching the meeting or will watch it later, pages 204 and 205, 203, 4 and 5 of our packets have some information just on one is called, let me get to the right page here. Demographic and economic statistics. It's just interesting, to look at those things, and you can see that the population of the county starting in the year 2019, 2020 has been declining, as is school enrollment. I think we all know that about school enrollment, but I didn't know that about the county numbers. Now, that doesn't specify by city, but that our population as a county is going down. And also the list of principal employers in Gilroy, because the city of Gilroy is number 7. We are far from a large employer. In fact, our number of employees is down to 279. And the largest employer is Gilroy Unified School District at 1,140. And then is Christopher Ranch, and then is Olam International, and then is Community Solutions, one of our nonprofits at 331 employees, much, much larger than the city of Gilroy. So this is interesting information if you want to ever take a look at some of that. That's also included at the CAFR. Okay. Okay. So with that, so do we need action of any kind? Just accept the report.
Correct, Madam Mayor.
Everybody accepting? Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Okay. Item 11.4, report on illegal fireworks administrative citations.
Good evening again, Mayor, council members, and members of the community. Maybe we'll end the presentation with fireworks. That was a bad joke, sorry. So tonight we're going to give you a report on illegal fireworks citations. The city of Gilroy continues to receive telephone calls and written complaints and concerns about the use of illegal fireworks, especially during the July 4th period. There have been several structure fires and wildland fires caused by the use of illegal fireworks. Fire operations has also responded to quite a few serious injuries, including the loss of fingers or injuries to the hand and arms, as you see there in the photo, due to the use of illegal fireworks. And this generally affects our residents too here, just in Gilroy overall. But the loud and explosive type of illegal fireworks really affect our military veterans and pets. So in response to the challenges with illegal fireworks, in recent years, the city has made some changes and improvements in enforcement. In 2022, I know the council added some sections to the fireworks ordinance to prevent persons using the illegal fireworks from evading the responsibility and liability for their actions. So essentially, the ordinance holds property owners or renters accountable. And the intent is that those persons who are in control of the property or gathering be held responsible and liable for illegal fireworks activities associated with their property. And historically, the fines have been $250 per citation. In 2020, that went up to $500 per citation. And to be even more effective in deterring persons from using illegal fireworks, in 2022, that was increased to $1,000 for the first citation and then $2,000 for each subsequent citation. And furthermore, in 2022, video evidence was captured by aerial drones and body-worn cameras used by the citing officers. The citing officers also participated in the appeal hearings so that they could provide testimony and state the details of their observations regarding the citations. So this slide just shows a comparison between the 2020 and 2022. And you can see that the rate of citations upheld after appeal was higher in 2022. And this can be attributed to the modification in the ordinance last year, and also the presence of video recording evidence and the citing officer's testimony at the appeal hearings. A significant amount of time does go into the many different aspects of legal fireworks enforcement. During the July 4th period, extra officers are required. And staff time also goes into the use of drones to capture the video and also to review the video evidence for the hearings. The appellants were given due process for the hearings, which means staff has to spend time on the telephones or emails and multiple hours in in-person meetings with the appellants, preparing citations, handling the fine collection process, mailing out notices, coordinating the appeal hearings and all of the procedures for that. And there's also the time and effort which goes into the fees for the administrative hearing officer. So the estimated total cost for administering the citations and appeal hearings is about $45,000 to $50,000 this past year. So if there are no changes, we estimate that would be the cost going forward annually. And this does not include the time of the police officers. So there were more words on this slide because we want to share some feedback from our hearing officers. That this could be useful, for us moving forward, and explains why some of the citations didn't have the legal connection, for them to be upheld. And as you can imagine, although some of the illegal fireworks are discharged on private property, the vast majority of them were discharged in the public street. So when that happens, evidence was required to show that the cited person was responsible for the gathering at which the illegal fireworks were discharged. If the evidence couldn't be solidly demonstrated, then the citation was dismissed. And then same thing, when the fireworks were discharged in the public street, the mere ownership of adjacent private property is not sufficient to create a host strict liability. And the suggestion from the hearing officer is that the ordinance possibly could be strengthened by adding the language that the person possesses fireworks or presents evidence of use of fireworks, and also maybe include language of the adjacent street. And another suggestion from the hearing officer is to list both the homeowner and the resident on the citation. So staff's recommendation for council is to receive the report and provide direction for the fireworks citation program. Staff is seeking council direction on any amendments to the fireworks ordinance, any changes regarding enforcement, or any other direction regarding illegal fireworks. We'll have staff from multiple departments that are available to answer questions, because this has been, a multi-department collaboration. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm sure everyone's going to line up. I see Councilmember Hilton on here first, so let's just go and, yeah, it's on this.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
My first clarifying question is the fireworks companies pay stop time for the 4th of July. Is that correct? The upstaffing, as far as I'm concerned, they do pay for that.
I probably have to refer that to another member on the team. Go ahead.
There's a fireworks mitigation fund, and the TNT Fireworks, who is the vendor that sells fireworks in our community and helps with that process, they pay a fee for overtime for fire and for police.
Thank you. So staff time got covered by TNT for the night of, but obviously not for the appeal hearings.
Exactly.
Okay. So does that figure of how much it's cost, does that not include the night of 4th of July, or is that including it?
It does not.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it for right now.
Yeah, okay. And that's for safe and sane fireworks. I want the public to know that that's what we're talking about there. Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. Sharon, so I'm not going to ask the same question that Councilmember Hilton just asked, is that I was sort of going to go with there, but looking at what you presented here. So what I heard was, the number of citations that are given and those are dismissed is it's a huge percentage there that are dismissed, right? And it's due to the lack of evidence. That's what I keep hearing, right? Is that the main reason why most of these citations are dismissed?
That's part of it, but also, as mentioned, because a lot of them were, the illegal fireworks were discharged in the street.
Right.
And just the language in our ordinance now, and, depending on the situation, that kind of make it difficult to.
And I guess where I'm going with this is I think it's a great program that we're doing, obviously, to catch those folks. But when we look at, those that are being cited and those that are being dismissed, some people may look at it as not being very effective, right? So if you go back to the slide before this one here, and you said that the two recommendations that, the two recommendations were to list both the homeowner and renters on the citation. And the other recommendation from the hearing officers.
The third bullet.
Second one from the bottom.
Second one from the bottom. So if we were to implement these here, are we saying that those citations might be at a higher rate in regards to the folks that are cited and are paid?
Yeah, that could be the case. That's why the hearing officer kind of gave us these suggestions.
Yeah, because I'm trying to look at where, again, if you're cited, we need to cite those individuals. But if I'm a resident saying, well, go ahead and cite me, but due to lack of evidence, I'm probably never going to pay that fine, right? I'm trying to find if this is going to be the solution to making sure those folks pay.
Yeah.
And you're saying it will be.
Yeah, we believe it could be an improvement. And if you look at the difference between 2020 and 2022, that was a significant improvement.
Yeah, big change.
Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yes, you said that you're gonna note the property owner and the offender on the citation, but we don't normally make contact with the offender. They just take a picture and leave and send a citation to the property owner that they best think was involved, that they came from. So how is this going to address that? Because we had a lot of landlords after last 4th of July that were getting citations, and they knew nothing about it.
Yeah, I'll probably defer this to our deputy fire marshal.
So the intent, of course, is not to issue citations. The intent is to reduce the use of illegal fireworks in Gilroy. And landlords have significant control over their property through the contract, the lease agreement. And so they can impose their will. The use of fireworks or the storage of illegal fireworks on their property represents a hazard to the tenants and to the structure itself and their neighbors. So through the power of their lease, they can inform their tenants that they can't do this. And that's the connection.
Well, I think most property owners do that in their lease, but I don't believe we should be holding somebody responsible that might not even be in the country. You know, they rent this stuff out and the city is out patrolling. They can make contact with the offender and get his name, but instead they take the easy route and just take a picture of the house that they think it's coming from. And it might not necessarily even be coming from that house because they're doing it out in the street.
Right. For that. So ideally, the citation in a perfect world, the citation would be safely issued to the person committing the crime. But what we can see from the videos is that by the time either a drone gets there or even a police officer, a lot of things have changed, and it's difficult to figure out who did it. So the drones help. The social ordinance helps. It's a piece. They're all pieces of a puzzle, hopefully, to reduce the use of illegal fireworks. And I hear what you're saying about a landlord not being present, but we do have to put pressure on those people who are renting the property so that they can comply with the law. It just can't be, oh, I can't do anything. My residents, they'll just do whatever. A lot of the property owners have issued notices, letters to their tenants, informing them that they have violated the conditions of their lease agreement. Some have issued a 3-day pay or quit notice, so they run the risk of getting evicted for failing to comply with the law. So I think it's multiple pieces of the puzzle that we're putting together to try to address the problem.
It is. I'm just going to piggyback on that. The other thing is the landlord might not even be aware that their tenant did this if the city weren't letting them know, you know, and so it's you really, this is something you just got to look at from all angles. Councilmember Marks.
Yes, I have a question here. I noticed that there's $61,000 worth of fines, but only 23,000 have been paid up to date. So how, and we're spending a lot more money on the officers involved in doing all this, correct? In the hearings and et cetera, from what the report said.
So the night of July 4th, fortunately, the TNT vendor pays for their overtime for police and fire. So that's separate.
But how are we going to get the rest of these fines? Are we going to lien the property? What are we doing? Or nothing? Just
what we're doing is, and I've got Monica here as well, because she's the money person, but essentially we're not letting these people go. Some of them have paid, and then others are still in limbo. Some are on a payment plan. And then we have others who their best defense is they just ignore all notices, and those people are going to be sent to collections.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see other council members wanting to speak. Just thank you, John.
Okay.
I think, I think that's good because again, the idea here is not to cite, it's to reduce the number of illegal fireworks that are going on throughout the city. I don't see any members of the public wanting
That
to
is correct,
speak.
Madam
Is that
Mayor. No speaker
correct?
cards.
Okay, so bringing it back to council, I know I, for one, would like to suggest that we incorporate the suggestions of the hearing officer into this if we are going to keep it. And I would like to keep it, and that there does need to be a nexus between who set it off. You can't just cite somebody because their property was adjacent. There has to be a nexus between that property and the person held responsible for hosting the gathering. Right. That would be, I'll make that motion. Is this something to motion on?
It would be
It's-
appropriate. You're giving direction to staff, so they would actually bring back a formal
Okay,
process.
so yeah.
This will get the process started.
Okay, so those would be the suggestions I would make. Anyone else have anything to add or to say? Then do we have consensus on that? Yep. Okay. Clear enough? Okay, that brings us to item 12, which is adjourning to the meeting of the Gilroy Public Facilities Financing Authority. So I'm opening the Gilroy Public Financing Authority meeting at 7:25 p.m. and asking for a roll call. Councilmember Bracco, do you want to be here for the roll call? No? We're doing it.
Okay. Director Armendariz,
Yes.
Director Bracco, Director Klein,
Here.
Director Hilton,
Here.
Director Marks,
Yes.
Director Tovar,
Here.
and Chair Blankley.
Here. Okay, so with that, we move to the consent calendar. Is there anyone wishing to remove something from consent? Public comment,
No public comment, Madam Mayor.
closing public comment. Looking for a motion or a digital vote. What is it you want here?
We can do a motion here. I'll just put it in the system here.
Okay. So do we have, I'm sorry, was there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move.
Moved by Councilmember Marks, seconded by Councilmember Tovar.
Okay. Bear with me here since I have to say director here. Director Armendariz,
Yes.
Director Bracco is absent at the moment. Director Klein,
Yes.
Director Hilton,
Aye.
Director Marks,
Yes.
Director Tovar,
Yes.
and Chair Blankley.
Yes. And then that brings us to 14.1, which is approval of the action minutes of the December 5th,
Oh.
20. Oh,
You
you
just approved
just
the
did that.
consent calendar.
just approved the minutes?
Yes.
Oh, that was on the consent. Introduction of new business. Gilroy Public Facilities Financing Authority. All right, approval of resolutions specifying circumstances under which regular meetings will not be held, designating certain officers and employees as ex officio positions, and adopting a budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. Andy, that's going to be you.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members or directors of the authority, I should say. The Gilroy Public Facilities Financing Authority is a peculiar organization in the sense that it's not like the city council. Many cities have these. It's a pass-through organization that really exists only for the purpose of issuing debt. So it enables the city to issue bonds that it otherwise could not issue. And in fact, it tends to meet only when bonds are being issued. So we met in December, as the minutes reflect, to issue the recent refinancing of bonds. So in reviewing the documents that control the PFFA, I came to believe that we need to do a little bit of cleanup and adopt some resolutions that would make its operations a little more efficient. So we have prepared 3 resolutions for you tonight. The first one reflects the fact that most meetings of the Public Facilities Financing Authority are canceled. The Public Facilities, the PFFA, meets at the same time and place as regular city council meetings if it meets. However, it rarely meets, and it only meets when it really has a need to. So the first resolution would say that if no agenda is posted by the secretary, then the meeting is deemed to be canceled without further action. That will make things a little bit easier. The second resolution states that various positions in the agency are filled ex officio by people from the Gilroy Council and staff. Ex officio means by virtue of the office. So for example, the chair of the PFFA would be the mayor of Gilroy ex officio, whoever that mayor may be at the time. The vice chair would be the vice mayor. The secretary of the PFFA would be the city clerk, and the general counsel is actually called the legal advisor, would be the city attorney. So those offices would be filled as automatically without taking action every year or whenever there's a change in personnel. The agreement provides already that the directors of the PFFA are the city council members. So that's the second resolution. The third resolution complies with a provision of the Joint Powers Agreement, which says that the board of the PFFA should have one actual meeting a year at least before March 1st, at which it adopts a budget for the ensuing fiscal year. And that budget is stated to be with respect to non-bond items. So actually, in practice, the only money that goes in or out of the PFFA relates to bond issuance or bond servicing debt even. So the finance director, who is the treasurer of the PFFA, has proposed a budget of zero income and zero expenditures, and the resolution would adopt that budget for the ensuing fiscal year. So we are recommending that these three resolutions be approved. They can be adopted by one motion. We need to take public comment, of course, but I can answer any questions that anyone may have.
Okay, council questions. I don't see any. Public comment?
No public comment,
All right.
Madam Chair.
Closing public comment. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve all three resolutions?
So moved.
Second. Well, Tom, he had his finger up, but I don't know what
Sorry.
comes first, a voice or a finger? Okay.
You're going to just jump in.
So
Tom.
that motion was made by Councilmember Armendariz and seconded by Councilmember Marks. And roll call?
Director Armendariz,
Yes.
Director Bracco.
Yes.
Director Klein.
Yes.
Director Hilton.
Aye.
Director Marks.
Yes.
Director Tovat.
Yes.
And Chair Blankley.
Yes, I'm sorry, I called you guys council members, directors. Okay, I will now adjourn. We'll adjourn to the meeting of the Gilroy City Council at 7:31 p.m. And we continue with item 17, which is city administrators reports.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. I have a few announcements. One, if you've noticed, the city installed new cameras for broadcasting of city council meetings. They look like little something from Star Wars, but that is the last piece of our technology upgrade. And we also added another camera just behind the left side of the dais as well. And also gives us more flexibility. So we're not twisting and turning, trying to match cameras. We have the whole area. So thank you for your patience during this. It's been a lot of different technology going from 1990 to 2022 is a painful process, and we still have a few kinks to work out, but it is definitely better and more user friendly, and the quality is much better. So that's the first announcement. The second is that the city's opening of the gourmet parking lot on Thursday is going to be rescheduled due to all the rain. The only thing needed is to put the stripes on the pavement, and you can't do that when it's raining. So we'll reschedule that and make sure it's a sunny day. And then the downtown area parking meeting that was scheduled for in-person tomorrow night is being moved to a Zoom meeting with some COVID issues. And so if you have a desire to participate in that meeting and for the downtown area, the parking management plan, we'll make it a little bit easier for you, and you can do it via Zoom. The last announcement I have, we've talked a lot in the last few council meetings about garbage. It has become a very big part of all of our day, and including mine as well. And we're really struggling to keep up with all the garbage that we're finding everywhere, and the calls for service, and just those things in general. So we're gonna give something a try here in March, and we'll have a much bigger announcement with something of a fancy name, which we haven't come up with. We're still trying to figure out what to call it, but it'll be some type of Gilroy cleanup program. And to give you an idea of what it is right now, we do not have employees dedicated to picking up garbage. When we get calls for services, we have to pull our maintenance workers. Some of them may be working on sewer lines or cleaning up our parks or doing things like that, or we may have to get a code enforcement officer involved. That is not a good use of their time because it does not utilize their highest skill level. Some of these folks are highly trained, and we want them to keep doing those jobs. And so this last few weeks, the city conducted interviews for 7 new maintenance workers. As part of that interview process, we are going to hire 2 part-time individuals whose primary job will be garbage collection and pickup. We've never dedicated anybody to that specifically. And so this will help us address the need to do more in that area. These will be part-time positions. And so we'll do this on a pilot program basis. And this will enable us to also do some work on the weekends, which we currently don't do. If we get a call on Saturday, we typically can't get till Monday. So we'll have people on the weekends working as well. But that's not the only thing we're going to do. I've been inundated with people offering to help and to ask what they can do. So we're going to take you up on that offer. And one of the things we're looking for is volunteers. And the city has a volunteer coordinator who will be organizing several initiatives over the next few months to get the public involved, to try to help clean up, because I know they want to help. But to be honest with you, we just do not have the people to keep up with it right now. And it's frustrating for everyone involved. We will be bringing back the Adopt a Spot program. Some of you probably remember that, where you classrooms, civic groups, nonprofits can adopt a section of town. The city will provide you with materials, bags, and then we'll pick up the garbage for you if you pick it all up for us. So we'll be bringing back that program. We will also be doing organized cleanups, at which we will reach out to other groups and have a spot that we've adopted, and we'll be doing that again with some support of the city. We've done that before with the Rotary Club, where they cleaned up US Creek, and the city provided some materials and some logistics to make it a little bit easier for people to help. We will also be initiating a garbage hotline as well, so people can call in, and we will then prioritize that garbage pickup accordingly. One of the other issues that we're finding is that we have all these hands involved in gathering garbage, but some of this stuff is really, really bad, hazardous material. And we don't want people in a bad position and picking up things like batteries or syringes or other things that we're finding out there unless they're protected and have the proper training to do so. And so getting a hotline or a workflow in process for when people have a service request allows us to allocate the resources appropriately. We will be focusing on routes throughout the city. We are not going to tell people what those routes are, because I'm afraid that people will start dumping all over those routes. But we do have certain spots that we know garbage goes to. And I think most of you probably know where those spots are as well, because you call me about them all the time when we go clean them up, and then they're dirty again. So that'll be part of our rotation. And so that's what we're going to try to do. Like I said, we're going to give this a fancy name and do some kind of kickoff in March. But that's the best we can do, is try. I know everybody's frustrated with the garbage, and I'm frustrated too. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll report back to council and let you know how many tons we're picking up and ways that the city can continue to support anyone who wants to help us. So thank you to everybody that's reached out to me. We're listening, and we're going to put you to work too. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on that program.
I have a question, Jimmy.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Armendariz.
Thank you. And thanks for your work on this, Jimmy. Will other agencies, like, you can continue to poke and prod them or ask them to contribute, Valley Water, Union Pacific, like VTA, Caltrans?
Definitely we do, but we're much more responsive to requests than other organizations because we were here.
Right.
And so again, this isn't a negative on any group, but getting a hold of Union Pacific is nearly impossible. I don't even know where they are and where they would come from. But in the time that I do all that work, we could have somebody go out there and pick up the couple of bags of trash. We're learning very quickly that relying on outside agencies isn't working very well for us. So we're gonna have to do some of this stuff ourselves.
Okay,
great.
Thank
Jimmy,
you.
I have well, actually, it's a clarification that I may ask you to do. For those of you that read next door, you'll see there was a very lively conversation last week about the city of Gilroy not contributing to the nonprofits. And so I talked with Jimmy because I've sat here as we approved money that went to the different nonprofits. And so I asked him tonight if he would please clarify and let the citizens know how much we have actually given over the last few years.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yes, I sent a response to someone saying that the city does not directly fund nonprofits, and that's not entirely true. The city receives grant money because it is a lower income community from community block grant, and then the council as a body votes to where that funding should go. And they have some options and some choices about how to allocate it. And typically, there are several $300,000-$400,000 a year that goes, and a lot of that goes to our nonprofits. So over a period of a few years, you could see, especially during COVID, when some of that money was increased, it does get, over a few years, millions of dollars. So the reason why that program is in place is that the federal government does not want the city of Gilroy using its general fund when we can be provided funding through a CDBG program. So other cities that maybe have a higher income level don't get CDBG money because they can afford to use their general fund. We cannot in many instances. So that was kind of started on me by saying we don't directly fund, but that does not mean that the city does not make decisions on how that funding goes and when it's received.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the last newsletter that the February spotlight also listed out had a lot of detail in that, but it specifically addressed the $474,000 that most recently, for over a 2-year period. Okay. That city attorney's reports, Andy.
Yes, I'm going to briefly explain using a recent case why we have agenda items that sometimes read like War and Peace. And I think people get a little tired of reading the whole thing. For example, 9.1 that the council approved recently, today, on the proposed tentative map, the CEQA agenda item or the motion is to find that the tentative map is exempt from further environmental review and qualifies for the state CEQA guidelines class 15 exemption minor land divisions, and then goes on and gives some reasons. So why do we say all that? The case came out of Arcadia, city of Arcadia last week, where that kind of verbiage won the case for the city. It was a kind of case that gives CEQA a bad name. There was one homeowner who was remodeling their house, and their next door neighbor fought it tooth and nail, filed a lawsuit, claimed that the city should do a full EIR on this house remodel, which involved about 1,000 square feet of space. But that's what happens when neighbors dispute with each other sometimes. So the complaining neighbor filed the writ of mandate claiming that the city violated CEQA by not doing a full EIR. The city defended and said, well, you complainer, you did not exhaust your administrative remedies. You never appeared in front of the city council, either in writing or in person, and said that the exemption that we used, that city of Arcadia had used an exemption from CEQA. You never said that that exemption was wrong or did not apply. The neighbor said, well, no, but I said over and over that it has all these horrible effects on me and on the environment. You should do an EIR. And the court threw the case out. And the court said, because the agenda item said very specifically that the city was relying on a particular exemption, therefore, in order to maintain a CEQA case against the city, the petitioner would have to say why that exemption was wrong during the hearings. And the idea is that therefore the city in theory could have a chance to correct it. So because the city in that case was careful about how they worded their agendas and put a lot of verbiage in, they won the case, and the court held that in fact the petitioner was on notice, the neighbor was on notice that the city was relying on a certain provision of CEQA. So to challenge it, they had to challenge that exact provision. So that's why we do these agenda items this way and specify what exemptions we're using from CEQA or what other CEQA explanation there may be. Anyway, so that's, I know sometimes it seems like a little bit of overkill, but it really isn't. And it's done in the interest of making decisions stronger and less liable to challenge. So that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Well, with that, why don't you take us into closed session?
All right. The next item is conference with negotiator, collective bargaining unit pursuant to government code, section 54957.6, Gilroy City Code 17A11-4. Collective bargaining unit is the Gilroy Police Officers Association representing Gilroy police officers. The city negotiators are Jimmy Forbes and Leanne McPhillips. The anticipated issues under negotiation are wages, hours, benefits, working conditions, MOU between the city of Gilroy and Gilroy police officers. So it is appropriate now to take public comment and then adjourn to closed session. Once in closed session, the council must take a vote, and the outcome of the vote to stay in closed session, and the outcome of that vote is a reportable action when you adjourn from closed session.
All right, opening public comment.
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
All right, closing public comment. At 7:44, if I need to announce this time, I know I need to announce when we come back, but we are, well, are we adjourning to closed session right now?
We're taking a recess.
Right, we're taking a 10-minute recess. Okay, 7:44, we're taking a 10-minute recess.